Okay.
Midweek movie club. Na 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 na.
Oh. I thought
We're
that was
working
another
on
one.
it.
Anyways,
Workshopping it.
Yes. Oops, let me take off my
I was about to
headphones.
say I'm Annabelle, but that's false.
I'm
I'm
Annabelle,
and I'm Teresa.
and welcome to another episode of Midweek Movie Club.
Okay, well, first we recently, as in beginning of January, we saw Nosferatu. You must
Bounce on it.
So Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
Overall, maybe.
I feel like it's an episode on its own.
Yeah, we need to talk about that movie. We really
I
do.
enjoyed the cinematography. That's all I'll say for now.
Beautiful visuals. And we'll leave it at
that.
that.
And Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was really good.
Yeah.
So was Nicholas Hoult. I actually really like Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, as the titty baby cuck character.
He's so baby girl coded.
He's so submissive and breedable.
I can't believe. Okay, we'll keep that in.
Oh, sorry. Was I not supposed to say that?
No, just say it. It's fine.
Yesterday we saw one of them days
with Keke Palmer and SZA.
Which so I saw SZA talking about how she was on tour at the time when she realized I don't have time to rehearse for this movie project that I signed up for. I thought they had maybe we're friends in real life. Their chemistry was so good. Do we know if they're
friends in real life?
I mean, the press tour made it
felt
seem
like they were friends.
They have such good chemistry. I thought it was so funny and it was really entertaining. So
it's one
would
of those
recommend.
Think of outrageous comedies, a little bit of
physical
comedy.
Yeah, they come back into screen wearing these terrible outfits, and it's
and the blood donation scene was horrific. It was so much.
Yeah. I guess a lot of physical comedy too.
Yeah, almost ridiculous amounts.
Yeah,
but
that one was fun.
Yeah,
would recommend.
Yeah,
and then I guess TV.
TV we're currently watching. I watch a lot of random TV shows, more so than you. I'm currently watching this new show called Doc. Mm-hmm. It's about a doctor who gets into a car accident and she loses 8 years of her memory. It's just to rebuild. The premise is a little bit melodramatic, but I think the acting's really good and the cases are really compelling. I think the acting, Molly Parker's acting really carries that show, though. She's very charismatic, so it's a good show. I enjoy that. And also, I watch High Potential, which is, what's her name? Caitlin Olsen.
From
It's Always Sunny.
It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, she's also very charismatic. She, carries that show.
She liked that show so much that then, so it's based on a French show?
Yeah.
Called,
called High...
Intellectual
potential or something like that. Yeah, so it's basically about a very intelligent woman who leads a very chaotic life.
She has
she's photographic memory, very very high deductive capabilities, but her life is a little chaotic.
Super high IQ, but her life is a mess.
Yeah, but she's well-meaning, and so she signs on to do consulting detective work and help solve cases. I think also a lot of these shows are carried by the lead. It reminds me of have you ever seen The Mentalist?
No, I've heard of it though.
What's his name? Simon.
Oh, that guy from Devil Wears Prada.
Simon Baker. Yeah, Simon Baker. He's very charismatic in that role.
Annabelle likes these investigative shows, the whodunits where law enforcement is kind of useless, and then a kind of vigilante type of quirky detective who's not really a detective, they're just
consulting. Yeah,
this woman's a mom. She's a mom of 3 children who she was hired as a cleaner initially, and that's how she started. So so more or less traditional procedural. I like the kind of case solving whodunit, even if it's a medical mystery, so House, all of that stuff. Yeah. Oh, I used to watch a lot of House when I was growing up.
It's fun. Those are fun shows to kind of you're kind of like, oh, how is this case gonna pan out and stuff like that. So it's fun. But I do like the more offbeat detective. I blame Agatha Christie on that because of Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot.
Angela Lansbury.
Oh, I do love Murder, She Wrote as well.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that wind is really whipping outside.
It's raining outside.
Finally raining.
Hope we don't lose power. Anyways, it's okay, I have a generator. We can still film.
We're catching up on the new season of Severance, which had to watch a YouTube recap because they took a long time in between seasons. I feel I don't know when exactly season 1 came out.
It might have been the writers' strike.
Even so, I feel like there was a long break between. Anyway, love that show.
That show's very good.
I hesitate when a show is really heavily advertised and recommended.
Oh, they did the viral advertisements at Grand Central too.
Yeah, I feel like normally when a show has a big push like that, for me it almost deters me from wanting to watch. But I had already watched season 1 and knew I liked the show, so take this as a grain of salt that it's actually genuinely a really good show.
Yeah.
And then I watched. There's a dramatization of the Troubles. Specifically centered around this one woman who joined the IRA with her sister named Dolores Price, and it's called Say Nothing on Hulu, and I binged that in a couple days. It was really good.
Also, to put it out there, if you're not watching Thai lesbian dramas or Thai girl love shows, I highly recommend them. They will deliver everything that you're looking for in Netflix, but not getting. So I'm currently watching Us, the series. It's available for free on YouTube. So there are so many of them that are available for free on YouTube.
Don't get her started.
Also recommend Affair and 23.5. Anyways, okay, moving on.
So you chose the topic for today. Lead us in.
I did.
Lead us in.
So I'm not a Jane Austen fangirl, but I do appreciate how relevant her books still are, or her works still are. And I especially like modern adaptations of classics. So that's why we're here today to talk about Fire Island.
Not a new movie.
2022?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've seen it probably 4+ times since it's...
Right. Together, not counting the times that I've watched it separately.
Yeah, it's just really fun, entertaining, just objectively, just as far as enjoyability. I really it's funny. It has a great cast. Mm-hmm. Good chemistry. It's just a fun movie. It's over only a short time period of a holiday weekend. Like
5 days. I think they're on Fire Island for 5 days. And the film is written by Joachim Booster.
Yeah, I didn't know he wrote this. So now that I've done more research and read everything. Yeah. I didn't know that he wrote the screenplay, but now it makes so much sense.
You're right, yeah. But and directed by Andrew Ahn. Mm-hmm. He's done other works, but the thing that I'm excited for is he's going to direct the remake of The Wedding Banquet.
Oh, that's what you were talking. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so The Wedding Banquet, directed by Ang Lee, my man, and focused on a Chinese American man who's gay, but when his parents come to visit, he has to pretend that he's not, and there's a lot of it's comedy of errors type thing. A lot of shenanigans ensue, right?
Kind of like Birdcage.
But yeah, the same type of kind of zany parents, but
caught up in a web of lies.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you say Bowen Yang is is it confirmed that he's in it?
Yes, it's confirmed that Bowen Yang's in it. I can't remember who the other leads are, but I did know that I was excited to see Bowen Yang and Andrew Ahn work together in.
Yeah. Because I also, I'm not super familiar with this director, but... Or have you seen any of his other films? I wrote down one that I thought was interesting. It's called Spa Night. It's a coming-of-age drama of, I think it's a young Korean-American man.
Oh.
Described as a portrait of forbidden sexual awakening set in the nocturnal world of spas and karaoke bars in LA.
Oh, okay. Hey, we're in LA.
Crazy?
We've gone to karaoke bars. Anyways, yeah, that sounds fun. Actually, we should probably look that up. I would be interested in watching.
But I forgot
always
about The Banquet. That's
gay Asian stories.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of an adaptation. Fire Island is
Fire Island is an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. And I think as we go through the story, we're gonna kind of lay out the parallels, the characters of the film, and who they correlate to in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it would be fun. I did some research into Fire Island.
Oh yeah.
Well, because I don't know. So if I feel like if I know it because I'm familiar like with the area, but like some people might not know.
Yeah.
There are like across the U.S. there are these pockets of these like quote unquote historically like gay or lesbian towns. So like for example, like
P-Town.
Provincetown in Rhode Island that is really known for having like a really good pride.
Featured in the movie Bros. P-Town was in Bros.
Oh, there you go.
Also has Bo and Yang as a guest star in it. But
also love Bros. Have rewatched that one too.
I thought that was a fun movie.
Yeah.
I love the wackiness of it.
I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, chemistry.
We should talk about that one maybe another time. But so Fire Island describes like these two like neighboring like islands off the coast of it's like Long Island. One called Cherry Grove and one called the Pines. And just a sidebar fun fact, your favorite gay Irish writer Oscar Wilde visited the islands in 1882.
Homo.
So, but kind of like a sad history. So, not like a sad history, but just the idea was that it was kind of like this like arts center, which I thought that was really interesting. The idea that like arts and theater community kind of the men who were like owning estates and like inviting people, they weren't always necessarily gay, but they welcomed a lot of like gay people and just like
artsy
widely
was always
queer LGBTQ plus people. So there's like one house that's particularly like well known in that area, and they were like, we don't necessarily know. It's called the Carrington House. It's not confirmed that he himself, I think his name is Frank Carrington. He himself might not be gay. He invited a lot of gays. For example, it's rumored that at that house, Truman Capote was supposed to have finished writing Breakfast at Tiffany's there.
Whoa.
Allegedly. So you have like this kind of arts and theater community. The theater there, Cherry Grove Community House Theater, is like now a historical landmark. It's kind of said to be one of the like first like homes for like drag.
Wow.
Basically.
Okay. Cool.
Specifically helped define camp culture and paved the way for like the current like modern like interpolation of drag. So I thought that was interesting. But anyway, 1938, very tragically, a hurricane totally like wipes out this area. But what it did was it kind of like lowered property value. So a lot of the people who had started coming to the island to enjoy their time there were able to buy houses and property at lower values from like the families who had previously lived there. And so that's where then it became more of a predominantly like not just like people within like the LGBTQ plus community visiting there, but also owning and living in the houses there due to like kind of this interesting tragedy. So that by the 1940s that a small contingent of gay theater personalities grew to a vibrant queer majority.
That's very cool.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. I've never been to Fire Island. It's kind of on my bucket list.
I just thought of it as a party area, like WeHo.
And like present modern day, it's kind of like you read it and it's just like I was afraid you're gonna look over your shoulder because once I got to the modern history, it was just like this like shirtless man like with nipple tassels like shaking like a cocktail shaker. Of course. And I was like, yes, modern day.
That's what I know. That's my idea.
But a bunch of gay writers have historically visited Fire Island, including, I already said Truman Capote, but also Frank O'Hara, Tennessee Williams, so A Streetcar Named Desire, Patricia Highsmith, Talented Mr. Ripley.
Carol, or The Price of Salt is the book. The movie was Carol.
Oh, I should put that on my list to read. Yeah. And also W.H. Auden was a British poet.
Oh. Okay, so we just went through the historical background for the real Fire Island. Now let's go into the movie.
Actually, in the first intro of the movie, in the narration, you have Joel Kim Booster's character. It's kind of like in bed with like a hookup. Yeah. And like over the narration is quoting Jane Austen, like the
first line from Pride and Prejudice,
that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife, which then he says is a bunch of hetero nonsense.
Yes. Pride and Prejudice is about the Bennet sisters, and they are sort of like romantic adventures or misadventures. Their parents trying to marry off their daughters because they're about to if they don't have any male heirs, and so based on that lineage, the house that they own, all of their property, cannot be passed on to the girls.
Yeah, it's gonna go to
a random male heir. So they're going to lose their fortune soon because Mr. Bennet is getting old, and so they want to marry off the girls as soon as possible to secure their future. And so the girls are Elizabeth, Jane, Mary, Lydia, and Kitty.
Kitty, which is short for Catherine.
Catherine, yeah.
So
in the film, that would be Noah is Elizabeth.
Howie's Jane.
Max is Mary. Luke is Lydia.
Keegan.
And Keegan is Kitty.
Perfect. So they're just a group of friends going on like a holiday weekend trip to Fire Island, as they phrase it, to party and to hook up with people. As most going to Fire Island, their objective is to do as such.
Yeah.
And they have a friend there, played by Margaret Cho, who's basically just like their lesbian house mother, like who owns a home.
Yeah, she owns a house on Fire Island, and so she would be our stand-in for Mrs. Bennet.
Yeah, but it's revealed like that this is her last like summer trip to Fire Island because she can't afford to keep the house. So that's kind of like, it sets up a similar kind of economic kind
driving force, catalyst.
Ultimately, it doesn't really end up being like a huge like thing that comes back a lot in the movie, I don't think.
But it does sort of give this sense of urgency to the fact that they know they won't be able to spend much time in the same place anymore. So they're trying to do all of these things, make all of these memories.
Yeah. It also sets up like this key point of like class difference, which is another parallel between the book, that obviously like there are these tensions of like owning a property, being of a certain class, whether you're married or single. And then there's just this kind of vibe on the island of like they kind of get treated like just very like the undesirables by these like they
and they're well aware of it. Like they're very self-aware that they're treated as undesirable because they don't have the money. And I think the film in particular, obviously not the book Pride and Prejudice, but the film in particular, Fire Island, addresses the racial issues that surround, like, that are within the gay community as well.
Yeah, so some of, like, the critique and, like, essays about this topic of, like, the book being compared to the movie is that, I mean, it might also be, like, a consequence of, like, time, and also Jane Austen was doing what she could with the material to show inequity, but not necessarily critique it. Whereas, like, I think, like, Joel Kim Booster really comes for, like, the throat with some of the writing.
Oh, yeah.
Just the idea, like, I have one pull quote that's basically just them explaining the hierarchy of no fats, no femmes, no Asians.
Which is a common refrain on Grindr. So.
Which I think, like, Joel Kim Booster's character, Noah, I think, like, addresses this most head on and is kind of a little bit, like, sassy and, like, matter of fact, has some, like, moral high ground that he
involved,
really eager to, like, catch people on their bullshit, and
which is exactly what Lizzie Bennet or Elizabeth Bennet was in the book. She's very cutting, like, she's,
but this really comes into play. So basically, like, at one of, like, the parties, there's, like, so many different events and parties happening on the island in that particular weekend. Howie's very, like, romantic with Bowen Yang's hair. He doesn't want to just hook up with someone. Like, he really just wants, like, a little romantic little moment, if anything. But then, like, he's Noah's like, no, I'm going to get you, like, laid this weekend. Yeah, that's my number one objective.
Noah's whole thing is that he's very sexually liberated. And so because he loves Howie a lot, he wants him to be sexually liberated too. And the tension will come back as an issue, and it's going to cause tension between the two of them, because the whole time Howie's like, I want to find love. Mm-hmm. But Noah's like, we need to get you laid. You've just been like, I don't know if he's celibate, but he's just not partying on the island to the degree that Noah thinks he should.
Yeah, because I think he's not that kind of person ultimately.
But I think Noah in this...
He also has a lot of internalized, like, because, like, so his idea is that he's not, like, at the very least, Noah, even though he is, like, clearly, like, none of them are rich, and he's also, like, Asian, which is also another thing that's, like,
taken against him in this community.
In the gay community. He's very, like, conventionally attractive. He's very fit.
Right.
So he at least has something, whereas, like, Howie feels he has nothing.
Right.
Like,
he feels unwanted, and that is a literal word that is used in the film, right? Like you don't know how it feels to feel unwanted all the time like this.
Yeah.
Which is so, like, it's crushing.
Yeah. But, so, he makes eyes with this, like, cute little white boy named Charlie, who happens to be, like, a doctor.
Yeah.
So.
But he's kind of a himbo. He's, it's, like, smart, book smart, but
he is a bit of a himbo.
So yeah.
And also a little bit too easily impressed by, like, he's talking to him about, like, the SNL skit, the gay.
Gays in space? And he's like, I've never heard that before. He's
wow.
So dumb.
So he meets Charlie, who would be Charles Bingley, kind of on the nose.
And that's the character that he is in the book, too. He's very amiable. People love him. Very popular. Very easygoing, right? As opposed to...
So then this is where, like, their group of friends gets introduced to his group of friends. So there's this, like, class divide where they have a super nice fancy house, and when he invites them all, it's like, whoa, who are you guys? And this is where some of these other characters get introduced, like Will, who is, like, this kind of, like, grumpy... Yeah. Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy.
Yeah.
Who is immediately skeptical of them and is like kind of judging them.
Very obviously contemptuous. Is that the word?
Or I think so.
I don't know.
I'm not gonna hold you.
He's full of contempt for them and judges their behavior seemingly very harshly.
Yeah, but also. He kind of likes Noah. Like you could see immediately he's very interested in them. Him.
Because they had an encounter even before Howie and Charlie met, right? Noah was trying to get drinks and some really weird like racist dude was trying to hit on him. Some guy who like fetishizes Asian people was trying to hit on Noah, and Noah's like, no, this is my boyfriend.
He grabs Will just to kind of be like, oh, right, babe, we're gonna go here. And he was like, he totally didn't get the memo.
Yeah. Like, he was like, what is this? So, not cool. You should have helped him out, Will.
Yeah, so they already had, that's true. They did have, like, a moment. And there's another moment in the film where, like, he overhears Will just, like, talking smack about them. So, he's decided, like, they have, like, this kind of, like, enemies to lovers.
Prejudice.
Trajectory.
Oh, against each other already.
Yeah, because they started off, like, really not liking each other and having holding certain judgments too, because Noah also is judging him, thinking that like he's a lawyer. I think
he's a lawyer, so Noah's making assumptions about him and his background and the wealth that Noah, in his opinion, thinks that Will is holding his wealth above everybody else and is trying to be this token Asian in a sea of white friends. Yeah. They're not really friends, but, you know, they don't know. Noah doesn't know that. He just thinks that Will is like a token Asian dude who only wants to hang out with rich white guys.
Keeping up appearances, you know?
Yeah.
And then this other character who's kind of like this bad boy character, Dex, gets introduced, who is supposed to be George Wickham. Yeah. And so, like, Noah takes interest in him and is like, oh, like, really just, like, kind of just, I think, physically attracted to him. And is just, like,
very physically
interested
attracted.
in him. I think they meet each other at the co-op, like, this grocery store.
Yeah. And he's like, and Noah's trying to, like, bang up this can so he could get it for a discount. It's very specific. Yeah. You could get, I think,
because again, they can't afford
full price groceries.
They offered to like host like his friend Charlie's friend group at their house for dinner, and then Margaret Cho's character is like, just bringing a dinner party on me? Go to the co-op and only get the stuff that's like banked up or about to expire.
Yeah, so they can't afford groceries. So Noah is like banging on a can trying to make it deformed so he can get it for a discount. And then Dex helps him and he goes, I'm poor too.
Yeah, so then they relate and then they're kind of vibing. And then you get like this sense where like Will suddenly is like, you think, oh, is he jealous? But he's like, this guy is Dex. Bad news. Yeah, he hates like, Dex. Don't trust him. Which you mentioned, like, the whole jealousy and stuff is also similar to the Pride and Prejudice, or the meddling, right? Like,
yes. So Mr. Darcy doesn't. He's standoffish, but he immediately his alarms go off when Mr. Wickham comes onto the scene, and he's essentially telling Elizabeth, stay away from this guy. You don't want to, he's not good for anybody. And Elizabeth's initial perception is that Mr. Darcy is looking down on this guy, just like he's looking down on my family, and so. Mr. Darcy's clearly prejudiced against Mr. Wickham. And that's the tension in Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same kind of layout. Obviously not the same plot points, but the same tension where it seems like Will is discriminating against Dex because he's also poor.
He's like some hooligan, you know.
Oh, and he has an OnlyFans. And that's what Dex initially tells Noah at this dinner party.
He was just judging him for, like, basically being a sex worker.
And so he and Noah kind of, like, make out. After that dinner party, then they go to
the underwear party.
Yeah.
Which apparently is, like, a real thing. Like, I read I have more pull quotes and things to talk about, but Joel Kim Booster wrote an essay about the motivation behind this movie and his appreciation for Jane Austen. This is, like, a real experience. Like, I guess the underwear party is a really thing. I am unsurprised. Underwear party is what it sounds. You wear only underwear.
Yeah.
It's the party. And then there's this, like, kind of, like, blacklit back room where everyone's just sucking and fucking, basically. Yeah. And so in this room, Noah gets down and he's doing his thing for Dex.
Yeah.
And Will walks in and sees this happening, like, eye contact.
And he's like, and they both look at each other, and then Will runs out.
Yeah, and then they have was that before or after they had an encounter on the dance floor?
Yeah.
They were kind of left alone on the dance floor, like their respective parties kind of went elsewhere, and they kind of, like, had this moment of tension on the dance floor.
Which is also, I think, in the book, or at least, I don't know if it was in the book. It's been a while, but I do remember it being in the Keira Knightley version of
There's a few parallels to that. He was specifically, like, the kissing in the rain or whatever. Like, he said that was instead of the dance at the Netherfield, the pool party on Ocean Walk was his experience. Or instead of turning about the room with Carolyn Bingley, the trip to the back room at the underwear party with in his real life, some muscle bottom named Todd.
So, muscle bottom.
That's like the seed of experience that motivated, like, writing this.
Yeah, so they have that little very tense, very close dance together. Yeah. And you could see that, like, whatever tension has been causing them to argue is also, like, kind of like sexual tension as well.
It's because they don't want to like each other, but they do.
But they do, yeah. They go to the underwear party, and then he finds out that Charlie and Howie, who were supposed to hook up at this party, had been separated, and that Charlie somehow has gone back with his ex.
Yeah.
Come to find out that Cooper, who is this Caroline Bingley stand-in character, or the parallel character, has brought in Charlie's ex so that he would not hook up with Howie because he thinks Howie's beneath Charlie. Yeah. And so Howie's very high. Like, he's on drugs, and he's just like, I don't care anymore. I'm sad. So he finds Howie, and then everybody just sort of disappears when he goes to the bathroom, and he's like, what the hell, guys? I don't have a phone. Oh, he drops his phone at the beginning of the movie. So, he can't get in contact with anybody. And Will says, I know where they went. I'll take you. And so they have this sort of, like, they cut through a shortcut, and it's raining. It's very muddy. And he and Will are, like, going at each other. Like, you think you're too good for us? No, you think you're too good for anybody. Oh, and he has that quote about Noah, like, oh my God, that was so cutthroat. What did he say? You act the way that you do so that when someone comes along and actually rejects you, it doesn't hurt as much. Jugular, right? And so Noah's very upset, and he, like, falls, and then Will helps him up and tries to kiss him. He's like, what the hell are you doing? Runs off.
Yeah.
And then he finds Howie at some random party about to hook up with that racist Asian fetish guy.
Oh yeah, the guy from the beginning that like tried to flirt with Noah at the bar.
Yeah, and Noah's like
rando.
No. Yeah, he was like, you are settling, and so Howie gives him this crushing like explanation for what he's going through, right? Just what is it that where he's like, you don't know what it feels like. Stop pretending like we're the same.
Yeah.
We're not.
Because he's like, it's you and me, like
yeah. Noah's like, it's you and me against the world, whatever. And Howie's like, no, stop pretending we're in the same situation.
Yeah.
You know what it's like essentially you know what you look like, you know what I look like, and I know what I look like.
Oh yeah. It's really heartbreaking.
It's crushing, and I think it's very honest dialogue, especially for I don't want to generalize, but I think that's an experience that happens for a lot of men in the gay community with this reputation of like, oh, you know, gay men, they're very sexually liberated, you know, anybody can have sex with anybody. That's not true though.
Yeah, there's certainly the exploration of this is exploring a lot of like on the microcosm of like the small community, how many like prejudices there are embedded in that experience. And I think Joel Kim Booster also talks about a lot of these like rules, like that you'll never win by living by someone else's rules book.
Yeah. And I think it's applicable to, you know, queer women as well. There's certainly a lot of racial class differences within the queer women community, just the queer community in general, that I think goes unexplored, that this movie really digs into from the perspective of a gay Asian man.
Yeah. But then, like, you get some answers the next day. Like, everyone's, like, hungover, but then you get some, like, resolutions and answers. One of those is being that it turns out that last night when, like, he was totally, like... wasted. Luke is he hooked up with Dex. And how other people know that is because Dex filmed him without consent and posted it on his OnlyFans. And turns out that he did that to someone previously who was a friend of Will's. And so that's where Will's like bias came from. And so then Noah realizes this and like they trash his phone and like they make him delete everything, even what's on like online.
They threaten to make him register as a sex offender.
Yeah. So that like kind of character is diffused like...
Yeah. The Dex character goes away because they just realize how much of a piece of shit he is. Yeah.
And then by the end of the movie, Howie is also trying to like leave early.
So Howie leaves, and Noah's trying to convince Charlie.
Oh, that's what happens.
Yeah, Noah's trying to convince Charlie to come tell Howie how he feels, but Charlie feels bad. He feels, I think, beholden to his ex because he's like, I came out and, you know, he was there for me, and Noah is just pissed, right? Because these people clearly think that Howie's not good enough for Charlie. And he's like, am I? This whole time, I'm the only one who has ever stopped to think that maybe you're not good enough for Howie. So he takes off, Howie leaves, and then Charlie and Will comes running over. They're like, where'd he go? It's like, well, you're too late. You know, if you want him back, you're going to have to do something dumb. And then Will's like, I have an idea. And then they run off. And then the whole party runs off. Like, what's going on? Max is like, oh, I don't want to get implicated. And they're like, oh, please. So they all go off. You don't know what happens because it cuts to Howie.
They're on like a private taxi, like a taxi boat. Because, by the way, also one thing I didn't mention about Fire Island is that, like...
you get there by ferry.
It's a car-free paradise.
Right.
Like, on the island, no vehicular travel.
Right.
It's just on foot, and then you leave the island by boat. So.
Yeah. All by ferry, and you travel from either island by water taxi.
Yeah.
So they steal a water taxi. It goes off to chase Howie's ferry, and then they get off and, you know, waving a lot of pride flags and stuff. And then Charlie's like, I love you. And it's like, oh, no, that's too dumb. Dial it back.
We actually still don't really know each other very well, but I do like you.
And so Howie agrees to come back for one last sunset. It's their ritual. They go see the sunset together.
Yeah.
And it's very cute. And then Noah and Will kind of talk about how neither of them are actually monogamous. Like, they're not into that whole getting gay married and you know, whatever.
But they just want to be happy. They see like an older like gay couple, like they're just kind of slow dancing on the beach, and Will just kind of gestures to them and is like, I want like whatever that is.
Yeah,
just
whatever
like
that is.
The experience of just being with each other, without, I guess, what they feel is like any kind of anything that is like confining them in any way, or like any structures that they feel is like forcing them into boxes that they don't want to be in.
Yeah, and then, you know, obviously it's a very happy ending. Everybody's together enjoying the sunset, and they smooch. Very cute.
Yeah, so there it is.
That's the synopsis of Fire Island. I think a couple of things that stand out for me while watching this film is that, like, first of all, the social commentary. And that's what I appreciate about a lot of, like, modern remakes of classics. So, for example, you have 10 Things I Hate About You, which addresses the, like, dynamics between boys and girls in high school and, you know, all of these gender issues. And definitely less sexist than, I think, Taming of the Shrew is what 10 Things I Hate About You is based on, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or, I mean, I guess it's not fair to say, I don't know, based on what standards, right? Maybe Taming of the Shrew is Shakespeare's commentary on gender expectations. Who knows? I don't think I've read it, at least not since high school. So
I think, like, the frustrating thing that I always struggle with is, like, when you're reading something through, like, your present day lens. Like, right. I think I always talked to you about that, like, 1970s countercultural film class I took in college, where I just was, like, fighting too much with the text, and, like, my professor kept just, like, encouraging me to really look through, like, the historical lens, like, and, like, anachronisms and all that stuff. So just, like, I don't know, it could be, like, for the time, like...
Right. Well, you can, that's the thing, right? You can make the argument either way. I'm not going to say I'm completely right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that anyone else is completely right either. It's hundreds of years ago. Who knows what the intention is? But I do read 10 Things I Hate About You as a much more, like, egalitarian portrayal of the genders. Anyways, and then you have things like Clueless, which is another Jane Austen adaptation based on the novel Emma. But sometimes it goes wrong, which is why I think Anyone But You, I enjoyed it. I just don't think it hit as well as it should have, because that enemies to lovers plotline should have ate. Should have delivered, and it didn't, because I don't think they have chemistry. They're just hot. Fire Island, I think, is where it goes right, because they cast based on chemistry. It would seem like everybody had chemistry with each other, especially that it's really hard to balance the Elizabeth and Darcy dynamic without one of them feeling like kind of like a jackass to the other, because they are both jackasses to each other. Yeah. Right? And so Will and Noah are both kind of jackasses to each other.
They did it perfectly.
Yeah, and it was a very balanced, where I didn't feel like it was too much. Yeah. You know, like, there's no going back from this. Like, sometimes when it's like enemies to lovers, you're like, ooh, there's no going back from that. Like, you really fucked them up. Like, you really did them wrong. There's no recovering from this. But
in his essay, Joel Kim Booster says that Jane Austen's novels are covered in wall-to-wall shade, which he says is the modern homosexual secret language.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because the entire dialogue, or
reading for filth.
Elizabeth's entire monologue about how, like, I would rather die than be with you, or something like that.
Girl, the drama.
Yeah, and what's funny is there's a moment in the movie too where Charlie's like, "Oh my god, you guys are all so funny. You're all so biting. You remind me of Amy Schumer."
Oh my gosh, oh, you might as well have spat in their faces.
Yeah, Charlie, no. Yeah, he's very white. Yeah, but I thought the chemistry was really good, especially between Joel Kim Booster and what's his name?
Conrad Ricamora.
Yeah.
Also, I think I told you, he's like currently in that comedy musical about Mary Todd Lincoln, which is so random.
That's so random.
So random. I kind of want to see that. I feel like I've heard good things about that one. Yeah. I was gonna just read some more, like, quotes. I think the Joel Kim Booster wrote an essay for Penguin Random House. It's not that long, but it kind of dives more into like also just his personal experience reading it. I think he said he tried to read it in high school and initially just like didn't know like what the point was or like how it could be applied to his life, like didn't feel the connection, right? And then I think he talked about like how he would start like taking books on public transit or like whenever he was going somewhere just to like seem smart, like just as like an accessory. And then it wasn't until later that he really started to like connect and be like, oh. So he had like this experience on Fire Island that he said that he couldn't help but map Lizzie's experiences navigating the limiting social conventions of her time onto the similarly tortured social conventions of gay male spaces. What all these heroines have in common, a journey every gay man at every level of our deeply toxic imaginary caste system can relate to, is seeing all the ridiculous rules that were created for you that you've somehow internalized and finally recognized them as false.
Yeah. Very poignant. Caste system. That's funny. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And I mean, ultimately, it's only as strong as you allow it to be, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, which I think, like, the idea is that I think Jane Austen was showing that, but I was reading, like, ultimately, like, either, like, the women in the story, they get rewarded with a nice marriage at the end, or if they don't, like, they're kind of, like, not really on the page anymore, or they're, like, relegated to,
if
like,
they have
the
no
sidelines
romance.
of... Yeah. So, not really subverting it in the way, but maybe just kind of, like, showing you, like, oh, see how, like, limiting this is? And then, like, it still works out.
Yeah.
But I think the nice part of that I think Joel Kim Booster talks about, too, is that, like, part of the work appealed to his, like, cynicism, but the other half of it kind of, like, to his surprise, unearthed his, like, romanticism.
Yeah.
Which... the first time he went to Fire Island, he said he probably was there with a lot more, like, lower self-esteem, self-deprecating humor that kind of has since, like, gone away, I think, for him.
So probably the Howie character was his before.
Well, he talks about he kind of was going to Fire Island to, like, try and find his Mr. Darcy.
Sure.
He ran into this man named Dan, who he felt like, oh, like, this is the guy, like, he's cool, like, I can, like, talk to him and connect, and we can have a cool conversation.
Yeah.
And then, like, later, Dan was, like, with his friends on the boardwalk and, like, acted like he didn't know him.
Oh.
And while he, like, he passed and, like, heard, like, snickering and, like, laughing.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so kind of, like, Howie. Yeah, he had, like, a Howie experience.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, like, so sad.
That's crushing. Yeah, no, just...
Yeah. He also said no one understands gay social mores like Jane Austen. I just think, like, it sounds, if someone just said that, you'd be like, huh? But then, like, reading the whole essay, you're like, no, this holds water. Like, it makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that Jane Austen is the gay man icon, like, alongside Ariana Grande.
But she's a very cutting, biting writer who bucked a lot of norms. Social norms of her time, so that would make sense.
He also calls detractors of Jane Austen sad literary meatheads. Who, because a lot of people, like, a big criticism is that there's no real conflict,
right,
with stakes. And I think ultimately that reveals just, like, a lack of connection with the material, really.
Just modern romance as a genre for both books and movies, right? It's a lot of contrivance in terms of, like, plot points and making sure that you cast the hottest people, but not so much casting for chemistry. So I use anyone but you as an example, right? It's like sort of forcing these two people into these roles that could have been better portrayed by other people. And that's not saying that Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney are not good actors. They are. They've done...
Shout out Immaculate. Shout out, what's that other one that...
Glenn Powell was in Set It Up, and he was excellent in that.
That's actually also still a rom... Immaculate is not a rom-com, let me just preface
No,
that.
Immaculate's not a rom-com. So Set It Up, that Glenn Powell was in Set It Up is a rom-com with Zoe Deutsch. very good.
It's good.
One of my favorites, modern rom-coms, right? Immaculate is the nun movie that Sydney Sweeney was in.
She does like
it's a
drama,
horror movie,
psychological, like she does emotional like distress really well.
It was very good. Her acting in that was great. Yeah. So it's not that they're not talented actors. It's just
the writing was bad.
Yeah, the plots were like paper thin, and even the characters that should have been very easy to like, the side characters. So Anyone But You is an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing, which has a very juicy enemies to lovers plot, which I love.
But contrast, the Anyone But You's enemies to lovers plot hinges basically on one small scene where like it was a misunderstanding of like some overheard like bad talking about like she overhears Glenn Powell's character talk like saying something offhandedly to some guy friend.
Right.
And that defines
their entire trajectory.
Not enough fuel to keep that fire burning, in my opinion.
As the amount of hatred and vitriol that they had for each other.
Unwarranted.
It felt like too much.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like a continuous like narrative, right? The
tension was really good.
There was a seed of something. It was tension. So that could have gone either way, and the circumstances steered in Fire Island. The circumstances steered them towards being kind of like butting heads and becoming enemies instead, because they couldn't take out that underlying tension, that frustration of sexual connection with each other.
Yeah.
So because they couldn't fuck each other, right? Because they're both clearly on opposite sides of whatever.
Yeah, but it was like stubbornness.
It was stubborn. It was pride.
Yeah.
And they had prejudice against each other. Hello. Okay. But it's kind of like a continuous narrative that kind of builds towards this climatic moment in the woods where they like lay it out, right? They're very very aggressive, very angry towards each other, and they say very mean things towards each other. Yeah. And that's when Noah runs off. And he's like, yeah, in the rain. It's kind of funny actually. Just like and then there's the other scene where Will like throws his little ice cream cone away, and then he runs.
Oh, the ice cream cone!
Yeah, it's like a continuous bit where Will is like this very like masculine, buttoned up guy,
stern brow.
Yeah, but he keeps eating little tiny ice cream cones, and then Noah like rips on him for it, and so after they argue, they run into each other, and then Will sees him. He's eating a little ice cream cone. He chucks it, and he runs off into a bar.
Oh, and the other thing too was like that. Noah like brought a book to read at the house. Oh yeah. And Will comes by, and he's like,
"Wow, someone reads."
He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I didn't think anyone would be reading here." And then
he's like, Noah was like, "Oh yeah, I blazed through Animorphs already."
Oh yeah. Because what book was he reading?
He was reading Alice Munro's one of Alice Munro's books. I can't remember. Yeah.
Animorphs. Oh my god.
Like, Will's like, wow, I didn't know anyone else reads, and he's like, oh yeah, I blazed my way through Animorphs already, so I thought I'd try something new. Yeah. This is such a good demonstration of what I mean, like sexual tension in the dialogue, because Will is like grilling him, right? He's like, "What's your favorite story?" Kind of like being a dick.
Yeah.
And so Noah's like, fine, I'll tell you about, like, so he name drops Powers by Alice Munro, and he's like going through the reason why he likes it. And then Will's like, I disagree. And so they kind of like go back and forth.
They're mentally jousting,
which I think is very sexy. And then Will goes, this is not an argument. And then he goes, and so Noah goes, then let me win. And then Will's like, okay, you win. Yeah. And in his voiceover, he's like, I'm both angry and turned on right now. Angry and horny.
Yeah. It's kind of like, we also just recently watched Challengers.
Oh, yeah.
Which, like, I think, like,
Angry and horny.
There's so many parts of that movie where, like, the music score, which is, like, basically just, like, really intense, like, European, like, club EDM, like, they play that music during tennis matches, but also during, like back and forth like dialogue that's getting really like spicy and sassy. Yeah. Because it's like very much like this game.
Back and forth dialogue. Yeah.
Like chess, or like I guess tennis is a really good example, or something just where you're like, oh yeah, and what will you do with this? And then sending it back and forth to each other. So you really feel that like energy exchange kind of building. Mm-hmm. You don't get that as much, like, for Charlie. I wasn't rooting as much for Charlie and, like, Howie to get together.
Yeah.
I think it was just also because Howie, like, was really struggling with his self-esteem, clearly. And I think Charlie was, like, interested in him in, like, a kind of, like, it gave more friendliness to me than, like, romance.
Yeah.
And almost that, like, Charlie was too nice to, like, not, like, entertain him at some point.
Right.
So I wasn't, like, romantically invested in that,
and
connection as much as I was for, like, Noah and Will.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, I mean, that's all the secondary romances in Jane Austen. I didn't really
They're
care about
juicy or
Jane
like
and
engaging.
Bingley.
Yeah.
They're just kind of milquetoast, like.
Gotcha.
That's cute.
Okay.
Cool. Fire Island's definitely one of those movies that it's very rewatchable, and it's kind of like a comfort movie. Like, you just put it on. It's reminiscent of a lot of, like, 90s, 2000s rom-coms that we really enjoy.
Entertaining, feel good, but also, like, clearly there's some depth. Also, we didn't address, but we are wearing frog and toad
merch.
Frog and toad merch, who are also homosexuals.
That's true. Confirmed
Homosexual.
homosexual. Yeah. The writer and the
Mm-hmm.
creator. So.
Yeah.
Gay romance.
We
love them. We need more of them. Okay.
Bye.